years we were collecting memorabilia of older actors and actresses. And then Carl came along and said, hey, maybe audiences should see this collection. And it was from there.
Yes, and we had told him that we did a one-man show back in 1979 to start our theater. And he said, why don't you do that again? And then we decided that since Randy doesn't really like doing one-man shows, that we should extend it to two people. And that's what set everything in motion. I think before that, though, I know for myself, when I first met Randy as a young acting student, he took me to the Strand bookstore and took me right over to the theater section, started to pull out biographies of actresses. And he said to me, start reading these. And it had a great impact on my becoming an actress. And I think the same thing happened with you when you read about these actors when you were younger too.
Yeah.
Right?
As a younger actor, you're learning your craft, and a lot of advice can be gotten from these older actors because of their experience on the stage, the kind of work that they did. So a lot of information, a lot of wisdom can be passed on and learned. And then you try it yourself, try the various ideas that they might have and see where that takes you. Yeah, they're like teachers. Yeah.
As we read the stories are wonderful. They're dramatic, they're funny, they're so sad in some cases. You see this dedication that these men and women have had to the theater, and that's our heritage. So I think any person who's going into the theater, anyone who watches the theater, to understand what our root system, at least a small part of our root system is about, can really transport you to a time when the idea of the theater was something more wonderful than it is today, because you didn't have television, you didn't have film. This was the event where the actor could get on the stage and tell stories in the most magnificent fashion.
In many respects, these actors discovered that the theater means more than just a job.
Yeah.
That ultimately, to be in the theater and to do the kind of work that you do, it goes beyond just simple employment. It's a quest to understand what it is to be a human being, a quest to understand what these stories are that great playwrights have written down and given to us, and how do you perform that? How do you embody that? It's a quest. It becomes a quest for something more meaningful than its simple job.
One of the greatest challenges is that there's so many actors, so many stories, and you just can't get them all in. I mean, you find an actress like Sarah Siddons and you see one little story about her and you say, oh, I want to tell that story. And then you continue to read her biography and you think, oh, I love that story too. So you have to edit down. You have to accept that maybe you'll introduce them to an audience and the audience will take it on themselves to go further if they, fall in love with one of them. I think that for me was the biggest challenge in the amount of material that's out there and wanting to share all of it with everyone.
How to edit something that can be multiple performances. There's enough material for 100 shows, of different actors and actresses. An enormous amount of material.
I think the other challenge, too, is putting it into a show because, and we talked about this recently, that for us, these actors have become almost family members. We know them so well. We know their stories. So when their name comes up, it's as if we've known them personally. And so you'd like to be able to speak personally about them, but because there's a format to, a theatrical project, you have to find the right stories to tell. It has to be well written. It's a whole element that's a little bit different than just us talking about our old friends. So that provides us with a kind of challenge, I think, yeah? But I think that the challenge of the show is also doing service to them. I don't want people to walk away feeling we've presented a museum piece and we're saying to everybody, these are stuffy old people who are dead now, you can move on to what's new and, quote, relevant. I want people to walk away saying, gosh, how lucky you are to be part of that world of the theater, and how wonderful those men and women were. Not that Randy and I are wonderful, but that they are.
My favorite actor is Edwin Booth, of all the actors. And now I've come to know something about Henry Irving, Sir Henry Irving, who was a contemporary of Booth's, and come to love him too. I mean, if actors saw his resume, they would keel over. He did hundreds of plays, hundreds of characters, and he worked at his craft. He was criticized for being ungainly in his appearance.
His voice.
Criticized people. His voice was criticized, but he worked at it. He worked at it, given all the criticism that was heaped on him. He just didn't sit back, and not do anything about it. He worked at it.
I think for me, I'd have to say, because we knew them personally, the people that I am looking forward to sharing with an audience are Morris Karnofsky and Phoebe Brand. We knew them personally. They directed us. They were part of a theater that came before us, that inspired us.
And made its mark on the American
and made a
theater.
Huge mark, yeah.
The group
Great
theater.
teachers.
Yeah, they were part of that.
So that said, I have to say that it's very, very, the more we worked on it, as Randy said, he started off his love for Edwin Booth, had been with him for years. My love for Julia Marlowe, because she was all about Shakespearean language. She wanted an audience to understand what they were saying when they came into the theater, what they were hearing. It started there, and then I read about Sarah Siddons, and I thought, every actress worth her salt should get her tail to the theater, hear about this great actress, and if you ever want to play Lady Macbeth, pick up her memoirs, because if you have the slightest bit of talent, you'll do a great Lady Macbeth by knowing how Sarah Siddons did it. So all of a sudden I have a love affair with Sarah Siddons.
Oh, and Eleanor Duse.
And Eleanor Duse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her love for the Greek plays. And she spoke Italian. She wanted so much to do Shakespeare, but she knew she had to do it in English, and she couldn't do that, So she had desires that to become a greater actress through those works. But she also had an empathy with suffering that I think we've seen few actresses have.
Mine is Edwin Booth and the assassination of President Lincoln. It's where the theater and real life history clash in an instant, in a most horrific way. And that one touches me profoundly. That one.
And I think mine is the young Julia Marlowe auditioning her Romeo, because she's only done the part with her acting coach for years, her teacher for years. But the first time now she's going to play it opposite a Romeo, an actor, playing Romeo, and I just find it delightful. So I think those, but again, I don't want to minimize the rest of them, because the Greek story is, I'm just so pleased that an audience will listen to the tale of the Trojan War. I think it's such an important story for our time. And I think that, again, to hear Sarah Siddons talk about her Lady Macbeth, to hear about Ira Aldridge, who everybody thinks is a black actor. Of course he would play Othello. But when you read his reviews for his Shylock or his Lear, he's talked about in such a way that he's better at Lear than any actor who's performed the role. So even that stereotype of, it's a tremendous step for a black actor to play Othello because of the prejudice that existed. But what's amazing to me is that he is an astonishing actor of great, great quality, that he becomes known for his Shylock and his Lear. So I think all of them have a place in our hearts, and I think each one of them will tell their own tale to an audience.